Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It. The draft lottery officially wrapped up a couple days ago, and now it's time for me to bring to you guys my official first round mock draft for this NBA draft. Going into it, the thing I really want to do with this before we get into it, this is going to be like part one of two, because in this one I'm just going to keep everything super simple, no trade, just if every team picked at their selected pick, and then also looking at it in terms of when I do my second mock draft closer to probably the end of the playoffs, and then I have a better idea of all the rumors and what teams are really going to be looking to trade their draft capital. Looking at that, I'll have a whole different episode and doing like a part two mock draft of all the trades I think could happen and who could be trading up and down and into the draft and so on and so forth. So looking at that, this is going to be a super simple, super straightforward mock draft, going no trade, just if every team picked with their selected pick. Going into it, we will be talking about like if I think this team will be trading the pick, so on and so forth. Just I don't really have the trade packages right now that I will later on in the future when we do a part two to this mock draft. But kind of getting into this, before we start the draft, I think that a lot of people are having this discourse and this opinion about how this is just a weak draft. I think just because there isn't a ton of sexy names, guys with super high upside potential, that people are automatically calling this draft class weak compared to the last couple years, because we have been kind of, I guess, blessed with some really star-studded guys to come into the NBA. But I feel like this draft, just because there isn't that head and shoulders number one guy, even though I think Alex Sarr is that number one guy, but like just because there isn't multiple guys where you like, okay, he could be a face of a franchise, that doesn't mean the draft class is weak. Looking at around the league, I mean, look at all the teams that are deep into the playoffs. They have high quality role players. High quality role players are at a premium at this time in the NBA, especially with the new apron coming up. Role players are getting paid. High quality role players are not easy to find. And I think teams are going to have to transition to start looking to draft some of these high quality premium role players that are based on fit. I feel like this draft, kind of like how my mock is going to be, I feel like I have a lot of guys going in certain situations where I feel like the fit is just there. Maybe it's not the biggest upside pick, or maybe there's higher talented guys on the board at that time, but I just think the fit is going to be huge for this draft, because I feel like there's a ton of high quality role players that were, if they get in the right situation, they could be Caruso type, maybe not on the level of Derek White, but a Derek White type, a KCP type, Aaron Gordon type, those kind of guys where like they can be plugged into these situations if they're picked in the right situation, that can really be valuable to their team. Yeah, this draft doesn't, like I said, doesn't have the sexiest names, or like a Wembanyama or Anthony Edwards. Like even back then, like people are using those drafts. It has in hindsight, like, I mean, nobody, I promise you, at the point in the draft, because me being a Warriors fan, we had the top 3 pick. During that Anthony Edwards draft, they were not talking about Anthony Edwards being this guy. He went number 1. He had talent. We knew he had talent, but they were not talking about him like they're talking about him now being the face of the league. So in hindsight can ruin all these drafts, because obviously we haven't seen this draft class play out yet. So let's not go out here and say anything crazy about how it's a weak draft class, when I think there could be diamonds in the rough found in this draft class, where in like a couple years from now you're like looking at a playoff caliber team and you're looking at a guy like a Reed Shepherd, a Dillingham, Cody Williams, who has a ton of potential. Like guys, like there's a ton of guys in this class that could be high quality role players, especially if they're put in the right situation. So my mock is mainly based off good players that can fit into these situations. But looking at it, let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting right here with the Atlanta Hawks, who got lucky. It sucks because in those other draft classes, obviously, well, like I said, use hindsight, I mean, there was a lot of guys were like, you're like for sure number 1 overall pick. I think Alex Sarr is still for sure the number 1 pick. I think he's the most complete out of the guys that you're drafting out of the first, like top 5 that could go number 1. I think he just fits exactly what they need, and it's really, he's the consensus number 1 for me, because whatever they decide to do with this team, I think it's going to be a good situation for Sarr, because if they just keep it the same, you get the number 1 pick and they can't find a trade for it. This is a pick that also can be traded in my eyes, but looking at it, he fits with DeJounte and Trae Young. He's a versatile wing because really outside of Jalen Johnson, that 4 spot is really lackluster and weak off that bench. He brings them size, and if they don't know what they do with Clint Capella in this offseason, you have Onyeka Okongwu. I still don't know if he's the big of the franchise for them. He definitely has potential, but we haven't seen it yet. So I think Sarr is still just the obvious number 1 pick in my eyes. I think he is just a perfect fit for what they want to do if they want to blow it up, or even if they want to keep Trae Young and DeJounte together. Now, Washington. They're like the only team that could be looking for a guy that they're like, we're drafting him to be the face of our franchise. I just don't see that in this draft. I think there's a lot of high-quality role players. But looking at this, Tyus Jones is going to be a free agent. He kind of doesn't really fit their timeline. I feel like a contender can easily come in there and swoop him up, and they're probably perfectly fine with that, especially when they're probably going to just go ahead and take Nikola Topic if he's there. I think he fits what they want to do, especially for another pick that I have them getting later in this first round. They just need somebody that can set the stage a little bit. I think Nikola Topic can definitely do that for them. They need a playmaking guard that can make it a lot easier on a Jordan Poole, a Kyle Kuzma, a Denny, a Bilal. Like, they have a lot of young talent. Their young core is actually pretty solid for the most part. They just need that. For one, I'm not saying Nikola Topic is going to come in there and be the face of the franchise or anything else, but he's a great piece with a Denny, with a Bilal. Jordan Poole is still young with how they want to deal with his situation. Kyle Kuzma doesn't really fit that timeline. I think they could definitely find a trade suitor for him. But the Wizards pick could also be traded. I think they could trade down, possibly pick up another first, and also get somebody, not saying Nikola Topic would slide that far down, depending on how far they would trade down, but looking at it in terms of they could get somebody like that with how many good point guards are in this draft class, because they definitely need a point guard and they definitely need a big. I think they could possibly, I have them addressing both of those in this draft, but I'm going to have them go ahead and select Nikola Topic right here. I think he just fits what they're going to want to do. They definitely lack that point guard spot, somebody that can set the table, and he has great size. And I think him, Denny, Bilal, and I'm even going to throw Jordan Poole into that realm. And the next guy I have them drafting in later in the first round into that young core that could be starting to gear up and kind of starting to put the pieces together a little bit. Rockets, right. Team that has an infrastructure already. Team that really has a good young core. They need pieces to support what they already have going, right? And I think the perfect piece for this, like I said, my mock draft is based a lot around fit. He might not be the crazy top 5 pick. He doesn't give those kind of vibes. But for what Houston needs, Reed Sheppard. I have to go Reed Sheppard here with this draft pick. Because looking at Reed Sheppard, he is somebody that can fit in any lineup they want. He is a great shooter. He can play off the ball. He can play with the ball in his hands. He's a good decision maker. He can play with Sengun. And if they want to go like a lineup where you put Jabari Smith at the 5, he can fit in lineups like that because he can fit at the 1 or the 2. His defense might not be there completely for how Ime does coach, but that infrastructure and shooting, he can make it to where he can fit into any lineup they have because they have a lot of versatile wings that can play 1 through 4, 2 through 4. And I feel like having Reed Sheppard in there has a consistent knockdown shooter, somebody who's going to make good decisions with the ball in his hands. Even off ball, he's going to make good decisions. So looking at it, I feel like Reed Sheppard is just a perfect fit in Houston compared to everybody else on the board. Like, Rishashar, like, they already have Jabari Smith. Like, they already have a Cam Whitmore off that bench. Like, that forward spot is really solidified in Houston. They still have Dylan Brooks that they're paying a lot of money to. They need shooting. They need somebody that can come in, be a consistent shooter in that backcourt, and that can play well off of a Jalen Green and a Sengun. So looking at next pick, the Spurs. See, them having 2 lottery picks, very, very valuable for them in this draft. I'm going to have him go Rishashar, though. I just think his potential next to Wemby, because they're really playing with house money, because I don't really know who is exactly part of the Wemby core. Like, I think Keldon Johnson could probably get moved. Devin Vassell, I think, is here to stay. I think he really showed flashes last year of being able to play right along with Wemby. But them getting Richard, somebody who I think does need a little bit of time to get acclimated to the NBA game, but putting him next to Wemby, the defensive potential could be crazy. And he's somebody that can play really well off of somebody who I have them drafting next, and also playing off of Wembanyama as well. Detroit. So, man, Detroit's tough. Detroit is tough because there's a lot of guys here. It says they need a point guard severely bad, but I feel like when you have Cade, they need somebody who can really fit. I think they need really more so like a 2. I see Buzelis right here, but I think I just don't know what the direction they're going in, because the Pistons are a team that has the talent right now, you would think, to really try to make a push, and they have all this cap space. So it's like, man, what direction do they really go in? I feel like this is the point in the organization where this is a very, very, very important offseason for them. So they need kind of somebody that can come in and just fit the puzzle pieces right together next to Cade and whoever they do pick up in the free agency market. I'm going to have him go on Buzelis right here. I just think he has a ton of upside and potential. His shot hasn't all the way been there in the G League, but it has been before the G League. He has the potential to be a solid catch-and-shoot shooter in this league. He has great size at that 4 spot. I think he can really fit well next to Cade. He just needs more time to develop, in my opinion. I feel like guys that come out of the G League Ignite, and just in my opinion, instead of going the college route, kind of come in with a little bit of a step behind because of it's just not college basketball. It's just not. I understand what they were doing with the G League Ignite. It was a fun experiment, but it's not college basketball. I don't think they're going to learn and pick up the same kind of skills that they would in college compared to the G League Ignite. I just feel like it's a completely different world. And I feel like when you're put on that college stage, you get more eyes on you. And I feel like it might seem like it's easier from G League Ignite to transfer to the NBA, but I feel like it's been harder to transfer from the G League Ignite to the NBA compared to a college guy to the NBA. I just feel like that whole process with the G League Ignite has been super, super weird. Next team up is Charlotte. Could go a couple of different routes here. I've seen a lot of Donovan Clingan because people still have question marks about Mark Williams being that big of the franchise for them. I see Rob Dillingham right here, but I think they're in a position where they have to focus on defense. I think Ron Holland out of the G League Ignite, somebody who is a really good athlete, can really defend. I think putting him, Brandon Miller on the wing together could be dangerous. I feel like he can really benefit with playing with a playmaker like LaMelo Ball. But whatever pick they want to go, I see Stephon Castle. I've seen him in mocks to the Charlotte. I think they just need that wing defender, because Brandon Miller's so versatile. I feel like he can fit the 2, 3, and 4, and they can have some really fun lineups and bigger lineups with Ron Holland and a Brandon Miller defensively. I think it could get really interesting in Charlotte. I think they need to really focus on defense in this draft. But with Newland is a team that has a lot already, and it's kind of hard to figure out what they need, because it's like they need it says on Fans Bro, you need a center, but it's like you still have Rob Will. I think you should probably give Rob Will at least one more year, because he does have so much defensive upside for them. You have DeAndre Ayton, you're already paying him a good amount of money. You have Jeremy Grant, you're already paying him a good amount of money. I do think Jeremy Grant has possibility of getting moved in this draft. You already have Simons, Malcolm Brogdon, who possibly could get moved. You still have Scoot, you drafted him last year, so you don't need a guard. So it's really up in the air for what this team could do with the 7th pick. They're a team that in my part 2, I possibly could have moving this pick, just because they're in a weird spot where they could trade down and just get a better fitting piece. I've been seeing a lot of Donovan Clingan mocks. See Rob Dillingham's here, but you don't need a Rob Dillingham. Stephon Castle's here, but I don't really think you have the backcourt or the room there, because you still have a Shaedon Sharpe. So, I really think they could use somebody that is a little bit better offensively than Stephon Castle, somebody that can really play off of Scoot really well, and Jacoby Walker, somebody who has really good 3-and-D upside, somebody who can really shoot the ball and space the floor. And I think the Portland Trailblazers are at a point where they kind of need somebody more NBA ready, because I feel like they have a lot of raw guys on that team, and a Shaedon Sharpe and a Scoot who's obviously very raw. But going on to the Spurs, easy pick for me right here. Rob Dillingham. I feel like he gives me Emmanuel Quickly vibes, Jordan Clarkson vibes, somebody that can come off that bench and fill it up. I think he can thrive with the San Antonio second unit. He has a great shooting ability. I feel like he's more of a 2 than a 1. Kind of like how I see Quickly. I feel like Emmanuel Quickly, and that's kind of my comp for him. He's more of a 2 than a 1 to me. I feel like he's best when he is looking to get his shots instead of playmaking for others. I think he can really do great things with that San Antonio team, especially off the bench, because if they had put him in a role with the second unit to where he can just go out there and get his, I feel like it's going to really show how much he can offer to the game, because I don't really think he's much of a playmaker as people think, and I think he's more suited as like a 6-man guy, a kind of more of a combo guard that can play make, but is better suited when he's focused on getting his looks. Next pick, Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, not Minnesota, Memphis Grizzlies. Man, team that I've heard already. They're one of the rumors I've heard already that they're actively shopping the pick. But I have them keeping it here. I like what they could do right here in this pick, because when you're looking at that big man spot, I really like Triple J being able to go to the 4 and provide them that spacing, and his ability to defend, being a great switchable defender. This is the defense player of the year we're talking about. I feel like they could really address like a wing need or like a shooting need in the offseason. But when I'm looking at the big man spot, I think this is a perfect spot for Donovan Clingan. Somebody who is a great rim protector, can block shots, can play well in the pick and roll next to John Morant. Him and Jaren Jackson Jr. can really lock that paint down. And I feel like I like Brandon Clark, but I really like Brandon Clark like off the bench, because he's still a really undersized big. And I think getting a real big in Donovan Clingan, who is a great shot blocker, putting him and pairing him next to Triple J in that front court could be scary things for Memphis, because I think Donovan Clingan can come into the league and make a really good impact on a team and a great fit like Memphis. Jazz, another team, an interesting spot. They already have kind of a lot of young talent on this roster. Already have a ton of young talent on this roster. But I think Cody Williams just fits. You're taking a guy that has a ton of upside. When you're a smaller market team like Utah, you kind of have to take swings like this. Cody Williams is a guy that has a lot of good intangibles with him, and he has a lot of good upside with him on both sides of the ball. And they're kind of lacking kind of that small forward realm, because I feel like if you go with guard here, Colin Sexton had a good year. You still have Keontae George. You have Lauri Markkanen at your 4 already. Walker Kessler's at your 5 already. So I was looking at that. I just think that it's going to be a good spot for Cody Williams to go into the Utah and be able to kind of spread his wings a little bit and be more of a free-flowing offense that they do have next to a Colin Sexton and a Lauri Markkanen. And he's not going to be stepping into a spot where he has to be the guy. Like a lot of these guys that are getting drafted are going into spots where they're not automatically the guy. They're going into spots where they're already got teams. Most of these teams got 1, 2, 3 guys already. They're spotting Cody Williams for Utah's point of view to be, grow. You can be free-flowing, because the Utah Jazz offense is mainly free-flowing, and I think he fits well with what they already have on this roster. Next team, Chicago. Don't know what they're doing. Still don't know what they're doing. I mean, at this point, I'm not upset with them bringing DeMar back, but Zach LaVine, I just feel like with what you've seen from an Ayo Dosunmu, a Kobe White, I think Zach LaVine just doesn't fit what they want to do. I do think he gets moved this offseason, so that's the mindset I'm using with this. So you're losing a Zach LaVine. I think they do end up bringing back DeMar. Patrick Williams is a free agent as well. So depending on what they do with him, how much money they're going to be willing to pay him. And you still have Lonzo Ball. You still have hope for him to come back and play. But for what they have, I think the Bulls are going to always be in a spot now where they're too good to bottom out, but they're not good enough quite yet to get to the levels they want to get to, if that makes sense. So I think a perfect spot right here is getting an NBA-ready guy that can really fill some holes for you, especially if you lose a Zach LaVine. So you're going to need some shooting. You're going to need some scoring. Give me Don't Connect. Probably the best pure scorer in this draft. Looking at this for them, I think he's a great fit because you can put him at the 3, have him come off the bench. He's just a pure scorer. You can have him coming off pin downs. He can catch and shoot. I think he fits perfectly off of Io and Kobe White. Somebody that is just a pure bucket getter. And you kind of already know what you're getting. He's an older player. And me personally, I think older players are going to be the ones that kind of have a trend and start to really thrive for these teams when I feel like they start to base this all off fit. And I think Dalton Connect is a perfect spot for him in Chicago because they're without Zach LaVine, they're still going to need some kind of scoring punch outside of Kobe White. And if they do bring back DeMar outside of DeMar, and I think he can really fit well and play well off of DeMar DeRozan. But they're a team that kind of needs to understand what direction they're going in because they're a team that's kind of hard to mock their draft with because they do have needs, but it's like until they really pick a direction they're going in, it's kind of hard to address those needs. OKC Thunder, another team. I mean, they're in the second round. They're the 1 seed. I see them looking. I see that they need a backup big, right? I see they need a backup big. But when I'm watching this OKC team play, they don't really have a bigger wing. It was supposed to be a Gordon Hayward experiment, but obviously that hasn't worked out. So they need somebody to replace those minutes. They need somebody that's obviously NBA ready right now, somebody that can do a little bit of everything, somebody that can fit next to J-Dub, SGA, and Chet. I just think that they can address the big spot in free agency because they are going to have a good amount of cap space. But I have them, you could say it's a reach. Kevin McCullough. He is an NBA-ready guy. He fits what they want to do. You know what you're getting from him. I feel like they are so guard-loaded, and a lot of these point guards you can see are sliding. Because I just feel like a lot of these teams, it's not anything to do with these prospects, but it's more so something to do with like the fit and what they want to do. Like if you're looking at an OKC, Aaron Wiggins has been hooping. You still have Cason Wallace. You have SGA who has the ball in his hands. Who knows what they're going to do with Giddey. Like, I feel like they have a good amount of guards. They need that wing spot. Like you already have Lou Dort and J-Dub. Have somebody, and it's supposed to be Gordon Hayward at this point in time. Have somebody off your bench that's NBA ready that can play right away. You can plug him off your bench. He can fit in a bunch of different lineups that you want to do. I think Kevin McCullough to OKC is a great pick because I do think they can just address that center spot in free agency because they do need a real backup big. You can see it kind of start to happen against Dallas a little bit. And I feel like they've kind of been getting, I like Chet. I think Chet could be great at the 4, depending on what 5 they get, because he's so versatile. But I just think they can just address that big spot in free agency. Looking at Sacramento Kings, another team that has already infrastructure. They kind of just need a perfect piece of the puzzle, somebody that can really come in and just fit what they want to do. Now, when I'm looking at the Sacramento Kings team, they have 0 point of attack defender. No point of attack defender at all. Keegan Murray has gotten better defensively, but he's somebody you want offensively to grow and grow. So looking at this team, they had a lot of injuries last year, which led to them not making the playoffs. So I'm looking at it in a realm where I think they bring Malik Monk back. So you're having him, Kevin Huerter, you gotta hope to have a better year. I've been seeing a lot of mocks having them draft like shooting, like I've seen Jared McCain. I don't know how I feel about that because they need defense. I feel like you're in a world right now where you can go out and get shooting, and it's not like they have bad shooting on this roster already. They need defense. They have nobody that's going to go out there and get a stop. You could argue like their best defender is damn near Harrison Barnes. Keegan Murray's shown flashes this year. I think he's been way, way better defensively this year, but they need somebody else other than Keegan Murray. So that's why I see Stephon Castle, but I think they need a bigger wing. I think they just need a bigger wing defender. This is why I'm going off fit, and I think they definitely need this. I know the shooting isn't there, and the comps are Matisse Thybulle from what I've seen. But Ryan Dunn is such an elite defender that I think Mike Brown, with that offensive scheme that they have going on over there, could benefit from having a Ryan Dunn. I think he could benefit with Sabonis, who's such a great playmaking big. He has everything defensively. Defensively, he can sit down. He's probably the best defender in this draft class. It's just the offensive and the shot and the shooting that you look at. But that's why you have a Keegan Murray that can strap up, a Kevin Huerter who had a down year this year, but I have faith that he can come back and step up. I have faith in them bringing Malik Monk back. You still have De'Aaron Fox that's getting better and better from 3. So you need defense. You need guys that can sit down in a chair and get a stop. And I think that's what Sacramento could definitely use because when you're looking at the league of guys that really can sit down and get a stop, I feel like they're hard to acquire. Like Alex Caruso's worth a first and 2 first-round picks, and he has the shooting ability. I'm not saying Ryan Dunn has that ability yet, but they need somebody with that elite defensive potential in Sacramento. Now looking at Portland again. Had them getting Jacoby Walker with their 7th pick. Looking at it, they can really go a number of ways. I still see Salon here. He has potential, and I don't know what they're going to do with Jeremy Grant. So I think this is a really good spot for Salon to go. He has a lot of potential. He can shoot the ball. I think he needs time to develop, and he's kind of more of a piece there where he's more of a project piece. And once he can, if he does get to his full potential, I feel like he can kind of be that Jeremy Grant replacement in a way, but better for this team and better fitting for this team. Miami Heat. 2 guys right here, 2 guards, where Stephon Castle, Isaiah Collier, both fit with Miami what to do. I'm going to have him go Stephon Castle because I like his defensive upside more. And I feel like he plays a little bit better without the ball, which I feel he could go into situations where he's on the court for his defense and he's more off the ball offensively with Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler. He kind of fits what they want to do. And then 76ers, this kind of goes hand in hand. If Miami took Isaiah Collier, Stephon Castle goes to Philly. I think with Stephon Castle and this mock going to Miami, I think Isaiah Collier is going to Philly. I think it's a great fit. They need somebody that can put some pressure on the rim, be an athletic guard other than Tyrese Maxey. Because, I mean, looking at the Philadelphia 76ers team, they're kind of working with a clean slate in terms of what their roster looks like. Because D'Anthony Melton's a free agent, he was kind of their other guard, and he had injury problems this year. Having an Isaiah Collier, somebody who is a great athlete, can also put pressure on the rim, is something they desperately need. Because looking at their team, they don't have anybody outside of Tyrese Maxey and I guess Joel Embiid, but on the perimeter that is really putting a lot of pressure on the rim in terms of just pure shot creation. And I think Isaiah Collier could be a great fit. I've seen a lot of mocks for him a lot higher, but I feel like there's a lot of teams that are just picking from like 5 to the point he's gotten drafted that just don't really need a guard. They don't really need a point guard. He can go somewhere where he actually fits what they want to fits and can really get a lot of playing time with the Philadelphia 76ers team. Now Pelicans, 17th pick. So this is an interesting pick from what I've done research on. So it's a swap. But the Pelicans have till like June 1st to decide if they want to keep this pick or swap it with the Lakers. So I'm going to go with a guy that I think fits both and what they want to do. Fits with whoever it is, if it's the Lakers or the Pelicans picking. I'm going to go Jared McCain. You can never have too much shooting. Never have too much consistent shooting. A guy that makes the winning plays. A guy that can really fit on a team with LeBron and AD. If it's the Lakers pick and if the Pelicans pick, he can fit right next to Zion. He can come off the bench and kind of be starting to grow into that kind of CJ replacement role, because they do have a young core. He does have good defensive intangibles in a way. I don't know how great it's going to translate, but he does show a ton of effort on the defensive end. And like I said, you can never have too much shooting. And on a team with Zion Williamson, you're going to need that shooting. So either way, if it's the Lakers or Pelicans pick, it's a swap. I don't know what they're going to do there. Jared McCain fits well with both sides. Next up, Orlando Magic. Now, another team that already has that infrastructure. They need a guard. They need a point guard. Looking at this, Isaiah Collier I thought would have been a great fit. I just don't think he slides all the way to Orlando unless they do trade up, which I think they're perfectly fine here because of a guy that they can get. So looking at this, you don't have Markelle Fultz. I didn't think he fit from the jump anyways. You're going to have a ton of money to spend, but I just feel like Cole Anthony is such a sixth man. I feel like he's perfectly suited to come off the bench and really look to get his. They need somebody that can set up Paolo, set up Franz, make it easier on them. And I think the perfect guy, I see Devin Carter here, but I think the perfect guy who can step in and play right away, Tyler Kolek. Some might say it's a little high, but I think he gives them exactly what they need. A guy, a pure playmaker that has the ability to shoot the outside shot, is a way better fitting piece than Markelle Fultz. Somebody that is going to be able to set the table for Apollo and a Franz and make life so much easier on him. That was my perfect kind of different pick, I guess, because I haven't really seen it a ton. That pick for me was it's a no-brainer in my eyes. They just made the playoffs. They're not trying to wait on a project player in this draft. They need somebody that is ready right now who can set the table for Paolo and Franz either off the bench or starting. He fits what they need perfectly, I feel like. Instead of them spending a ton of money and going and getting a playmaking guard that may or may not fit, I think Tyler Kolek fits what they want to do perfectly, and he fits the young timeline that they are already on, even though he's an older guy. But with these older players, you automatically know what you're getting off rip. And then Toronto's in another weird and interesting spot, because they kind of have a bunch of pieces next to Scotty Barnes. Don't know what fits. You have Gary Trent Jr., which is a free agent. You have an RJ Barrett who's wrapped up. I like RJ Barrett's fit there. Bruce Brown's probably not going to be on this roster for too much longer. You have Jakob Poeltl. You have Kelly Olynyk. They have a bunch of tradable guys still. Emmanuel Quickley, who's a free agent, who they have his bird rights. I don't know what they do with that. And like I said earlier, I feel like Quickley is more of a 2 than a 1 next to Scotty Barnes. And I feel like they're in a world where they could definitely get a point guard in Devin Carter here. Somebody who is a great defender, somebody who can do a little bit of everything, somebody who can fit next to Scotty Barnes off the ball, and even with the ball in his hands, he's still good. And I just feel like he can bring something to this Toronto team where I think they need to go into a realm where they're kind of building an identity defensively. He's somebody that can definitely fit that for them. And I feel like he is interesting because I feel like he can play with it quickly, depending on the kind of lineups they can do. They can definitely run. And I just feel like they're in a weird spot. They're kind of just starting the rebuild, and I feel like they could definitely use some more younger pieces that can fit that Scotty Barnes timeline. I think Devin Carter can definitely do that. Cleveland. Man, just eliminated from the playoffs. Who knows what direction they're going to go into. Need a wing. Need a wing. You need one. Need one that's NBA ready, too, because you're in a point in time where, like, your roster's too good even without Donovan Mitchell to bottom out. So they need somebody that's NBA ready. Tristan Da Silva can kind of give them everything that they're looking for. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. He fits what they want to do. He's an older player. He can kind of, you already know what you're kind of getting with him. He can be plugged right into the lineup and play right away. He can give them really good production. Pelicans back up. Man. So just saying, for sake of this, Jared McCain is already on the team. So the first pick was Jared McCain, and now looking at them, they got to replace the Valanciunas minutes, right? He's a free agent. I don't think you should bring him back. I don't like his fit because he's not the best defender, and Zion really isn't the best defender so far at this point. They need somebody that can really be an athletic beast on the glass and be a great rim protector. Let's go Khalil Ware. Super high defensive upside, can really be an athletic monster. Next to a Zion, can be a lob threat. I feel like he fits. He is a more complete Jackson Hayes in my eyes in terms of he's just so going to be kind of that athletic freak, but so much better defensively. And I feel like he has a great fit next to Zion rather than Jonas, and he's somebody that can really be a for sure rim protector for them. He has a little bit of the tools to kind of develop that outside game, but for what he's giving you right now, a great rim protector with elite athleticism next to Zion Williamson, that's definitely going to be a better fit for the Pelicans. Now looking at the Suns. This is another pick where I've seen talk about them already trying to move off the pick. They said they were going to move off the pick. But with this, I think they could definitely use a switch up on that bench because Nurkic isn't the greatest rim protector. I feel like he's great offensively, but they need somebody more athletic on the glass, somebody that could be a lob threat, somebody that can really run the floor a lot better than Nurkic. Let's go with Missy. I just think he can be that freak athlete that can be a great rim protector and that can be a great lob threat. That's somebody that's just a more athletic body that's going to be better at rim protection than Nurkic is, that can really help kind of not anchor the defense because he's going to come in and be kind of raw, but like somebody that actually has the potential to be a rim deterrent, somebody that actually can deter people from the rim, because I feel like Nurkic is a great offensively, but he doesn't have those capabilities to really defend the rim like that. And I think in a draft to where you have a lot of good role players, I think getting somebody that, like I said, is coming in a little raw, but pairing him with a Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and even a Nurkic, not saying he's coming in right away and starting, but having that guy off the bench that can be just an athletic freak at the rim and be a great rim protector and run the floor and be a lob threat can be very vital to what the Suns do and kind of can give them a different look, because I feel like the Suns team is just so slow. I just feel like they're so slow. They need more athleticism. He's one of the more athletic guys in this draft. I feel like he's a great fit. Now looking at the Bucks, could go a bunch of different directions. They need a center, but looking at this Bucks team, I think they're in a point now where they have to get it done now. Looking at this bench, they need a spark. They need a spark. They need somebody that can get their own off this bench, especially when, like, say Damian Lillard's out of the lineup or Giannis is out of the lineup. They need somebody else that can go and get their own. And when I'm looking at the guys here, I think we got to reach down. I know he has off-the-court stuff going on, but Terrence Shannon's probably the best two-way player in this first round. Probably the best two-way complete player. He has the whole package offensively. He can sit down and guard. And I think Milwaukee could be a great spot for him to where he'd be off that bench and just looking to get his. Because they need that spark. They need that kind of scoring on his own, that shot creation, that somebody that can play with a Giannis and that pick and roll other than Damian Lillard. Because outside of Dame and Chris Middleton, who's been up and down all year, who was hurt for most of the year, and Giannis, they don't have any other shot creation. It's too much. I'm not saying it's too much. It's so much pressure on Dame, Chris Middleton, and Giannis to where they have nothing coming off that bench that's creating anything. Terrence Shannon, I think, can bring them that, depending on what happens if it's off the court stuff. Because he is somebody that his draft stock is kind of weird because of the off-the-court stuff, but if we're just talking on the court, he's one of the best two-way players in the class, and I feel like he can give Milwaukee great production off rip. Looking at New York, it's another team, already got the infrastructure. Looking at their team, they need a big. I feel like Isaiah Hartenstein is going to get paid a lot this offseason, and I feel like they're going to have to just let him walk. They definitely need a big. I'm looking at a Tyler Smith. I'm looking at a Filipowski. I kind of like the upside of Tyler Smith more, though. Being able to be a small, kind of like a, not a stretch five, but a more versatile five man that can switch, that can shoot the ball. He has a great form. Looking at what he can bring to the Knicks team, who could use a different look because they have a Mitchell Robinson. You could have somebody like Tyler Smith be able to space the floor a little bit for you and kind of be able to run the floor a little bit better than the Mitchell Robinson. Kind of gives them a different look and versatility that they can't have. And then looking at it, I don't really know where you go here because you already have an OG. You have Bogdanovich. You have Josh Hart. I'm just picturing this roster if healthy. You have McBride, who's shown flashes this playoffs. You have a DiVincenzo. At this point, you kind of looking to kind of build up some more depth. And I feel like you can kind of use a little bit more shooting off that bench. I'm going to go with Furphy. I just think his ability and his size at 6'9", he has one of the best jump shots in this draft. He's a really good shooter. He can play phenomenal off of a Brunson, off of a Randall. With his size, you can put him with a bunch of different lineups. He has defensive upside potential as well. But him being able to be a catch-and-shoot guy for the Knicks off rip, which I think he's going to be able to transition into the league and do that at a high level, I think that is going to be a seamless fit. And with the Knicks having back-to-back picks, this is another team, depending on how they go out in this playoffs, could use both these first rounders to trade and get that guy. But just keeping it simple off this, I think those two back-to-back picks, I feel like they've definitely addressed some needs at the big spot and then some shooting needs off the bench. And he's still super young to where he can grow and develop with the Knicks. Washington. Now this is the pick right here. It's going to be interesting. They need a big. Zach Edey. I think putting him with Topic, a Jordan Poole, and a Kyle Kuzma, and a Denny, Bilal, he can go to the Wizards and put up some pretty good numbers with a playmaker like Topic, and even like a point forward like that Kyle Kuzma has, to where he can get off a lot of good numbers with the Washington Wizards. And I feel like the Wizards are really the only team that really fits what they need with Zach Edey. We know what Zach Edey is. We just don't know how his game is going to transition to the league. Washington, he's going to have the ability to do that with a great playmaker in Nikola Topic and other scorers like a Kyle Kuzma and a Jordan Poole. He's not coming in and thinking, well, Zach Edey is the face of our franchise. He's a guy that can come in and carve out a really nice role with his size and with how they decide to play him. Nikola Topic can get so many easy looks for him and so many easy dump downs. I feel like it all depends on how they decide to use Zach Edey, but I think Washington is definitely the best fitting place out of this first round because I definitely think he's good enough to be a first round pick. It's just the fit for Zach Edey. And I think I'd rather have the mindset of I'm just going to roll the dice with Zach Edey rather than Kyle Filipowski because he's still on the board, 14th ranked prospect out of this on fans, bro. So like looking at it like that, Filipowski is just such a weird prospect because he doesn't really have the defensive upside. And I feel like he has the offensive ability, but like I said, a lot of these teams just aren't fitting well for Filipowski. So right now, we're on Minnesota Timberwolves. Mike Conley's getting up there in age. I feel like they could really use Monte Morris as a free agent. They're in the playoff run right now. I feel like Bud Carrington could be a great fit out of Pitt. I think he has a really knack for getting in that pick and roll, being able to pull up and utilize that mid-range. I feel like he could be a great fit defensively with his size. He's still super young, so he can come in and kind of grow and possibly be a backcourt mate with Anthony Edwards. So now looking at Denver Nuggets, they're looking more so for a guy off that bench that could, because they already have a solid starting five. I like Reggie Jackson. I like Christian Braun, what he's given. I think Peyton Watson has super, super good defensive potential. But looking at it, I'm going to go with Keyshawn George, somebody else who has a really high ceiling. He has all the makings to be a really good wing in this league. He has really good 3-and-D potential. He's just a little bit raw coming out of college, and I think Denver could be a perfect spot for him to really grow in a good situation to really learn the game the right way, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of teams that can't develop talent. And what I'm seeing already from Christian Braun, what I'm seeing already from Peyton Watson, and their young guys, their bench isn't great, but I've seen flashes and sparks from those guys, and I feel like he can also come in there and be a great fit for what they want to do. Now with Utah, Cody Williams was the 10th pick. So looking at what they could look to do, could go a couple of different routes. Because like they're a tough team because they're also in kind of this limbo to where like they're competing but they're not good enough to compete yet. So they're kind of really just swinging for the fences at this point. And I think that they could really use a backup big. And I think this is where I have Kyle Filipowski going. I think he can really thrive being a big, because he is skilled. He's a very skilled big, and I think he could fit well with Lauri Markkanen behind Walker Kessler. Now, last pick in this first round, Celtics can go a number of different ways here. Man, I mean, I think you have to address, because they need a wing too. They don't really have any wings off this bench. So looking at what I think they could possibly do, I'm going to go, and some of the ones I've done, like just without recording, Deron Holmes, I think he can give them an athletic big post. Al Horford off that bench kind of give them a different look because they haven't really, and Luke Cornett's good, but like they need that. They haven't really had that athletic presence to where like you're like, okay, he's a rim running lob threat kind of guy who's gonna really, he doesn't really have the best offensive game, but playing with a Brown and a Tatum, those rolls and those lobs could be dangerous, especially with he can come in and they're a team that is going to be paying their top starting five so much money to where they need to hit on guys in the draft to really build out that bench. And I think he can fit that bench perfectly with Al Horford getting up in age. And I think he just gives them such a better look than Luke Cornett. But looking at the first mock draft, no trades. I just feel like I've really based a lot of this on fit and what they could possibly do. Looking at it in terms of what the trades could look like these back-to-back picks for New York could get traded. Who knows what's happening with 17 with the Lakers and Pelicans pick. Looking at like Chicago, what do they do? They're in a weird spot where they could trade the pick and try to bring in somebody, pair that pick with Zach LaVine to try to make that contract easier to take in for a different team. Kings could possibly trade their pick. OKC, who knows what their position they're going to be in. They could go big. They can go wing like they have them doing here in Kevin McCullough. Memphis is already trying to trade the pick. Portland could trade the pick. The Hawks at number 1, they could trade the pick. I can see the Wizards trading down. There's a lot of movement that could be done in this draft. But who knows? We still got basically a whole month left in the NBA season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of rumors come out about the draft movement and what kind of teams could be trading in, trading out of different picks and selections to try to get themselves. Because I see a lot of the weak draft talk, but I feel like there's a ton of high quality role players in this draft that could come in day one and make a huge impact for a lot of these teams. But that's all I have for this episode of the Barrel Talk Podcast. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.